Hi, I'm Solona Bonvald, and I'm the Executive Director of IEEE SA Open. Thank you for inviting me to speak with you today. I love Bangalore and I wish I could be there in person, but we are living in a virtual world. Maybe once this is passed, I can come and visit again. So, what is IEEE SA Open? Well, it's both a platform and a community, and it's 100% open source. What do I mean by 100% open source? I mean that we are contributing to open source programs upstream for the different ones that we're using and adopting, that we're adopting downstream so that we're open sourcing all of the different changes that we make, and we're doing cross-stream in regards to other groups that are doing similar work as what we're going to be talking about today. So we just launched the basic version, and we will continue to grow and create this together. Right now, we support some basic services such as open source code and some smaller data sets. But in the future, we will also be supporting open data, open hardware, and open standards. Right now, we have 16 different standards on the platform. Together, we can grow this platform to suit all of our needs. Right now, we're developing features and tools to allow this at a great level of scale. We're doing this via the open processes on the platform itself, and I'll be showing you some of those. As you know, IEEE is a volunteer-driven organization, and this is a volunteer-driven platform. It's up and live now. I'll go over what's live and what community groups we've already created, but remember, we're at the beginning of the journey, we're laying the foundation, and we need you to help us build it forward so that it can become a platform that enables you to do everything that you would like to see in the world. So, let me tell you about the platform and where we're at. Right now, we have GitLab CE and Mattermost, but we want to create a true community in a box. Volunteers have already been suggesting additional tools that we're testing out. This is everything from Big Blue Button, which is similar to Zoom, to Nextcloud, which is similar to Google Drive, and some simpler ones like Plant UML for one of the standards that we have already been able to implement on the platform in the past couple of months. Community in a box is an ambitious goal, I admit, but I believe with a large international community such as IEEE, we can do this. Our goals are aligned. IEEE's core purpose is to foster technological innovation and excellence for the benefit of humanity. IEEE Standards provides a high-quality, market-relevant standardization environment that's respected worldwide. IEEE SA Open's purpose is to empower communities by fostering trust, collaboration, providing transparent processes, and supporting project evolution. We believe in starting in standards. It gives us a very safe grounding in policies and procedures that can help raise the maturity level of the open source projects that we will host. GitLab itself is about 85 to 90% abandonware. We would really like to avoid that type of waste in regards to volunteer time and effort. So, some of you may ask, why a platform? Why not just use what is already out there? Well, IEEE has a long history and the standards group thinks long term. We wanted to have something so that we could guarantee that we would be up and running for the next couple of decades. We wanted certainty. Certainty that it is secure and that we won't have an incident like SourceForge and or SolarWinds. Certainty that we won't have rotting references. Certainty that our community will have the support that it needs. We also didn't want to depend on a proprietary tool. We wanted the flexibility to evolve it ourselves. IEEE is volunteer driven. We wanted our platform to be also determined by our members and the larger community. So we only use open source tools. Right now we have GitLab CE and Mattermost, but we're looking at many others that the community has already suggested. You can go, a little bit later I'll show you a link where you can go and suggest a feature yourself. Thank you. Hi, so one of the first things I wanted to go over with you here is the planned platform sitemap. This kind of explains how we're organizing the community and how we're integrating into IEEE's governance and how we're creating all these new processes that we're trying to create from scratch. That's all new. So the first one that I wanted to go into is OSCOM. OSCOM is the Open Source Committee. It reports directly to the IEEE Board of Governors, and it's more of a standard committee that you're probably used to at IEEE. It has underneath it some odd ad hocs, as you can see here, the naming ad hoc. But we wanted to go and look at things a little bit differently for the platform itself. One of the things that we realized is when we were looking at the different humanitarian projects that we wanted to give more guidance. Normally in open source, you have this dominant paradigm of the maintainers and the contributors. The maintainers own the basic structure in regards to how the project's going to go. A lot of times you have a benevolent dictator model, things of that nature. That's not really very IEEE friendly. We don't like a lot of dominance in regards to things like that, and we certainly shy away from corporate dominance. So instead, we're like, how do we create a more collaborative model? Not to mention, when you do a model that's completely dependent upon just the coders, you create great software for other coders. You don't necessarily create great software for humanitarian nonprofits or other groups. So for that, we were looking more as to how can we make all of this friendlier. And so we came up a lot with the concept of role diversity. And so for that, we have 3 advisory groups that we've created that advise the open source committee on certain things that they think should be governance or should be suggestions or some of the best practices or things of that nature. The 3 different ones that we have are the community advisory group, and that's kind of the heart of it all. It's where the nonprofits are. It's where we talk a lot about special interests and certain needs that they have. And then they also kind of do the overall making sure that the entire platform stays open to everyone. The next one we have is the marketing advisory group. And this is one of the things that I find is often really forgotten in regards to open source. And it's where you can go in and they do the open source market research through OSINT for open source intelligence. They do things like giving out templates or checklists or things to do for each of the projects so that when they're creating themselves, they understand, oh, these are some of the things we might be considering when we're creating this or that we need to consider when we do it. They also do evangelism and events because unlike that movie, if you build it, they do not necessarily come. And I think we've seen that a lot in regards to millions and millions of projects that can't recruit anyone. So we really wanted to make sure that we could do that, so we created the marketing advisory group. And then lastly, the technical advisory group. So oftentimes in larger open source projects, they'll have something called a technical steering committee. And they decide some of those larger decisions that we were talking about, and they do it in a more open fashion than, say, the benevolent dictatorship that I mentioned earlier. But we wanted to take it out of that whole maintainer-contributor model and make it a little bit bigger than that. And so here, the focus really is on production-ready products and how to help these different groups create that. And so we have a bunch of different things that we're doing in regards to that, in regards to suggesting best practices, different things they should do along those lines, stuff like that. But we're also doing it for the platform itself. One thing that we joke here a lot about is drinking our own wine because we don't want to eat dog food. Instead, we're making our own wine that we get to use. So all of these groups have feedback that they give to the platform itself, and some will even be writing tools that go on the platform and changing the features and doing things of that nature. And so that's the reason we have a feature and tool evaluation subgroup where they're coming up with those processes. We also have a security subgroup and a bunch of others that I'll go into more later. So when you first go to the platform, opensource.ieee.org, one of the things I would suggest that you do is you go to the groups and then you sort it alphabetically, and then you'll get this page here. As you notice, for our reserved groups, we added the 3 digits in front of it. So 001 is welcome. Welcome is where you can go in and get started. It's where our service desk is, so if you find a problem with the platform, this is where you can go in and report it. It's also where we're going to be doing a lot of our new user documentation that isn't on the website, and things of that nature. And then you can sit there and see we have the next 3 on there are the different advisory groups. We have the community, the marketing, and the technical. This is where a lot of the magic happens. So I really recommend that you go and join one of those. And then you can sit there and see that we have the OSCOM group for the open source committee. And then we have some others that we're working on right now, such as Sandbox, so that you can go in there and play. and you understand that we're going to delete it occasionally for those of y'all who want to go in there and, poke around a little bit. We have some specially hosted projects, and we're deciding what that means. We haven't figured that out completely yet. We've got archive projects so that when, say, we are doing a standard, we understand that no further development is going to be happening on that project, but we want to make sure it doesn't go away. References, there's a lot of material that's really important there that's tied there. So we have that so that it can be safe and everyone knows never to touch it. We have the to be deleted projects. So if we notice that something is getting a little crufty and people aren't working on it or things of that nature, we can go to the group and say, hey, how are you doing? Things of that nature. And if not, then we can delete that. And so that way we don't have a bunch of information that's no longer relevant there. And then we're also working on a bunch of community documentation and templates. And this is some of the stuff that you can go through and reuse. And then lastly, we have workshops. So we've been regularly doing these workshops on Big Blue Button for a lot of those different materials that you will see in just a moment that the different community groups have created. So the first one that I wanted to talk to you about is the Community Advisory Group. They really are the heart of the platform. They help a lot on some of the general processes, like what are the best way to do inclusive meetings? How should you, encourage mentorship and participation? How do we help facilitate and coach things through? They're all about leadership, positivity, teaching and designing and things of that nature. So they've got some groups that, you'll probably recognize underneath them, such as the diversity, equity, and inclusion. Very natural group for them to have. They also have badging as well. And if you go to the platform, you want to come in and join this group. The next one we have is the Marketing Advisory Group. This one is a great, big, huge experiment because most open source projects don't seem to know much about marketing. So it's been fun recruiting for it because a lot of marketing people are just kind of like, whoa, we've never had open source come and want to engage with us and talk to us about how to go through and do these things. So we're going through a lot of that, and they're enjoying being able to share their knowledge about best practices and how they do their work and what they do and how they do it. And so that's what this has become, is a bit of that. And so if you go and look, there's a lot of projects because there's a lot of different things that they're in there doing. But this is like marketing people, evangelists, social media, event speakers, designers, artists, all of them are all coming into play. And we've got a fair amount of metrics in here too, because hey, that's what marketing's all about. So you'll sit there and see some of the different things that they're working on in regards to this. So the third group is the Technical Advisory Group. And again, like I said, this is more similar, but there's some extra goodies in here. And so if you're wondering how we're currently doing, right now in the green is where the community platform is right now. We've got GitLab, we've got Mattermost, we've got Grafana, we've got the Plant UML that I told you about earlier. And then you can sit there and see how it's normally going, where it starts off with a community suggestion. And so right now we're looking at Grimoire Labs, Redmine, and Prometheus. We have a proof of concept install right now for Nextcloud. Let me know if you want an account so that you can go and throw rocks at it to sit there and see if it is what you want. Then the community decides whether or not they like it. And then we go through the design processes. And then once we get to that, we have an implementation that we can then submit to IEEE. And Blue Button is getting very close to that portion where we're looking at going to submit it soon. I wanted to talk to y'all specifically in regards to how we can better support you. We've been thinking a lot about how do we support IEEE societies, for example, because what do we have here to offer you? A lot of times it might not be transparent at the very beginning, and it's kind of like, okay, yeah, a place to put code. All right, that's cool. And then it's like, well, but they've also got chat and they've also got the video meetings, but we also have documentation via Pages. And with Pages, you can hook up any static site generator that you like. So, for example, we have Gatsby, which has a WordPress plugin. But it's more about the centralization aspect. So say you're going to be throwing a hackathon or a codathon or something of that nature, and you really want to have it all in one place. This is a really good way to do it. And the cool thing about doing it on this platform is when you have the next one, you can either copy it or continue working on it. And I think one thing that happens with a lot of these different events is because everything's spread out, all over the place, that when you go back after the event, you don't know where everything is or where it went or anything along those lines. Here, you'll know where it is. It gives you a little bit of longevity, things of that nature. The next concern is AAC Needs. Y'all have some special things that need to happen for you on these platforms to support you better. I think one of the biggest things is localization. I know that the community advisory group has already been talking about it. They were talking about possibly creating a subgroup. So I know some of y'all will probably want to join that. But it's even more than that. It's about the whole idea of asynchronous communications. And so having this centralized place, I think, makes it easier to do asynchronous communications. And we're always looking at ways of evolving the platform to support that better. We also have current meetings. Yes, we're a little, USA focused. I will admit that. But the main reason for that has been the majority of the early participants we've had have been from that area. But now we have several coming in from the APAC area, and they're going, well, when can we have our meetings? Come join us on chat. Let's start a discussion about that. Because once we know that those meetings are happening, we can go out and promote them and make sure that we have some way of doing an overlap with the others so that there is no duplication of effort, and instead everybody collaborates, even if it's asynchronously. The next thing is especially for the Communication Society. We want to support open hardware and open data, right? So current platforms don't really do that. I'm sure you're familiar with that already. And so that's one reason, for example, we did the Plant UML. But we want to do other things in regards to better support for diagrams, things of that nature, CI/CD. I attached a little link below from one of my friends who did a great presentation for the Open Source Hardware Alliance about how to do continuous integration for open hardware. And while this isn't something that's going to be done tomorrow, all right, it's going to take a couple of years, I'm sure. But I believe that this is something where we could really shine at IEEE, is showing everyone, here's some best practices, here's how we're supporting it with the platform. Come on in, join us, and help us out with it. So help us help them. And then with open data, there's a lot of considerations. So there's the basic ones that we're doing right now, where we do have some open data on there. Most of the open data that we have right now is in regards to some of our standards. So sometimes it's normative references, sometimes it's a result set, sometimes it's things to help run the frameworks, things of that nature. Okay, that's great, but we want to take it up a notch. How do we do the larger data sets? How do we integrate with some of the open data tools that are out there already that some other groups are already using? How do we handle things like privacy and security? What do each of those different pieces look like? At IEEE, we've already got Dataport and a relationship with CodeOcean. How do we tie those together? How do we tie it in together with publishing on Explore? Not quite sure, but we're looking at a lot of stuff. We already had someone suggest a tool from Ribos recently where they're doing hardware glossaries and dictionaries. And so how do we work with them to support that going forward? I think all of those are really interesting problems, and we can come up with the solutions for that together. So to wrap it all up and put a bow on it, this is my in review. This is everyone's homework if you decide that this is something that you're really interested in and you'd like to participate in. So first, go join the platform. Go to saopen.ieee.org and click on the Getting Started. Most of y'all are already members, so you probably don't have to go through the single sign-on portion. It's a little bit confusing because you have to hop over to IEEE, get your single sign-on, then hop over back, and so it's a little confusing. But if you've already got it, you can skip on right past that, and you can log in with your membership credentials. We also have chat, which you should also log into and get your account going there. But then after that, consider joining one of these advisory groups or one of their subgroups. Attend a meeting, drop by our office hours, something along those lines. Just come in and join us, even if you're not sure what your project's going to be yet. You can also come in and suggest a tool or feature. If there's something that you sit there and see on there and go, oh, there's this one really cool thing that I really like to use, can we see about getting it integrated? Drop on by, start that process. it's yours. You're part of IEEE, let us know what are the things that you desire in regards to it and help us with that process. And of course, there's the default here, right? Start your own group and project. So you can go in and, if you've got an open source project that you've been itching to do or something along those lines, don't go and put it somewhere else. Keep it in the IEEE family. Come on in, create a group, put your projects underneath the group, create a team chat channel so that you can have, each of those different things and have those all organized so that you can have a central place to communicate well with the group that you're creating for your open source project. So that's my thing for getting started. Here's the major links that you'll need. saopen.ieee.org, that's the website, lots of getting started materials there. opensource.ieee.org, that's the platform. Not so pretty if you haven't logged in yet, so log in first. opensource-connect.ieee.org, that's our chat. And of course, you can always contact me at sbonewald@ieee.org. Thank you, and I hope that you come and join us. And since I wasn't able to attend in person, I hope that you can find me on chat and ask me questions and things of that nature. Give me a little bit of time, though. I am on vacation at the moment. So, go ahead and post all of those. Understand that in about a week I'll be back and I'll be answering them. So thank you very much.